year was 1969. Richard Milhouse Nixon was President of the United States, but we didn't know he was a crook yet. 500,000 hippies descended on a little music festival in New York called Woodstock. The Vietnam War was raging with no end in sight, and the United States put a man on the moon, leaving the Soviet leadership to cry in their borscht. Oh, and the Ford Motor Company made a station wagon. This is the story of that station wagon.
Okay, this is my Ford 1969 Fairlane station wagon. It has been in our family for 29 years. We bought it when my son was 1 year old. We looked for a four-door family car. My wife had a Mustang, and the Mustang wasn't going to cut it, didn't have a back seat. And I used to see this driving by my house every day. A lady from our church, her husband owned it. And it was pale blue, came from Texas, rust-free. Had just a little over 100,000 miles on it. 302 C4 transmission. And I told my wife, someday I'm going to own that car. And she would ask me why, and my friends would ask me why, and I said, because I like it. I think wagons are cool. And so lo and behold, one day it comes up for sale for $850. And I called the guy, and he didn't want to sell it to me because initially he was scared that I wouldn't be happy with it, and I would be, I wouldn't be, yeah, I went blank there, sorry. That I wouldn't be happy with it, and then we wouldn't be friends anymore. So I walked over, I went to his house, talked to him about it. He said, take it for a test drive for a week. So I drove the car for a week and came back and said, I want to buy it. He said, take it for another week. So I took it for another week. And everything on it was fine. It ran great. It was the best $850 I've ever spent. And so we've had it ever since. During that time, I've painted the car 3 times. I painted it teal twice, and I've painted it gold 9 years ago. It was my daily driver for 10 years. Every day, snow, rain, didn't matter. We took it everywhere. The kids, we had a daughter, so we had 2 kids now. So we'd strap them in the back seat and in their car seats. And so right now I have 217,000 miles on the car. Rebuilt the motor once, never touched the transmission. Wow. And made it gold with the tan interior. So we can take a look at the engine if you want. Okay.
Let's pop the hood.
All right.
And we should mention that for a living you paint cars.
Yes, yes I do.
Well, and you teach to the other people to paint cars.
I teach auto collision repair. Yeah. So this is my hobby. So when I painted it gold, I had started teaching a few years before, and I told my wife I needed a new project because I was bored, and she said, go to the garage and work on what you have, fix the station wagon. So I was really into the golds and the oranges because I could paint it any color I wanted to. And I found this color. It came off a 2009 Porsche, and I figured that nobody at a car show or a cruise-in would park next to me with a Porsche and match me. So that was the idea behind this. And take it to shows, take it to cruises, drive it out for supper. I decided to put 2 4-barrels on it just for something different. I have an app on my phone for eBay, and lo and behold, I won a dual quad intake manifold, so I had to finish it off by buying all the other stuff.
There you go.
And so it's just kind of fun because people don't expect to see 2 4-barrels, and it's not an extremely fast car, but it's a great cruising car.
Yeah. And
so when I decided to put the 2 4-barrels on the car, being it's a pretty much stock 302, a lot of people have given me grief or asked questions about how does it run. I bet it gets terrible mileage. I bet it's a pooch. To be honest, it runs great. I bolted them on, did a little research again on how to hook up the PCV. Didn't have to adjust the timing, nothing. The car runs great, and as far as mileage goes, I don't really care because I'm not checking mileage. I get miles per gallon, not miles per gallon.
There you go. Yeah, you painted the engine to sort of match, didn't you?
I did, yes. I found a gold that just kind of highlighted it, and I just kept it simple underneath. I just blacked out all the metal. I was just trying to something I can drive, and I don't have to polish 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And so it just makes it more fun to drive. I get tired of polishing things.
Yeah, because you do it all day.
I do it all day.
Cut and buff, cut and buff.
Yes, that's right.
So,
that's right. And sand.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, let's. I noticed you got aftermarket wheels on this, obviously.
Yes.
Let's talk about those
Yes,
a little
okay.
bit. The appointments on the outside.
Sure. Okay. So I took it. I wanted to lower the suspension because it sat quite high. So I cut one coil in the front. I whittled some 1-inch lowering blocks out of aluminum for the rear. The wheels are Kragers, and they're actually kind of a new style SS, but that's not what they're called. They're called Krager Eliminators. Okay. And I picked 17-inch rims because the car is so long. It needed something to fill that wheel opening without looking ridiculous. It originally came with 14s and hubcaps, and they look so tiny on it. And so it drives nice, it rides nice with those. I've only seen one other car with those rims, and that was a Mustang at Good Guys a couple years ago. So most people don't even know they exist, and I think they still make them.
Yeah.
It's just something fun there. The interior was light blue, and when I painted it teal, I actually made the whole interior gray at that time, and I put bucket seats from a Taurus in it. I had electric seats. It was just very comfortable. And when I decided to paint it gold and go back the way it was, I found a bench seat again, because of course I disposed of the first one. And I have a good friend in Colo that does upholstery, and he did the interior for me. I vinyl dyed the dash to match, vinyl dyed all the components in the rear to match, and so he sewed the seats and assembled them. Otherwise, everything else in the car I've done. Painted it, rebuilt the motor, did all the rest of the interior, done all the suspension. So I like doing that. I like being able to say I did it all.
So the engine, when you did it though, did you just put it back to kind of stock? Was it just a stock rebuild, or did you throw a cam in it or anything like that?
Good question. Yeah, when I rebuilt it, it had a knock to it, and I finally pulled the motor out, took it apart, and found 6 cracked pistons. Ooh. 6. They were cracked. They fell in pieces. And so when I rebuilt it, I bored it 30. I put an RV cam in it just to give it a little more oomph.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I have dual exhaust. And so right now, that rebuild probably has 60,000 miles on it. It's got a lot of miles on it. But if you don't drive them, they just turn to garbage.
Yeah.
So they leak.
Yeah.
And so I like
dry out.
I like to dry. Yeah. So I do. I like to put miles on it. It's fun. It's a fun car. My daughter now loves to drive it, and it gives me a real kick watching her and cruising down the road in it. And so that's pretty much the car in a nutshell.
Okay.
The rear bumper. Here's an interesting story for you. Okay.
We like those.
A little tidbit. Okay. So the rear bumper is specific to a station wagon or a Ranchero, and the original bumper was rusted out. So I found a man on eBay that had one for sale in Washington State. So I messaged him. I purchased it, messaged him, wait for a month. Finally, he gets back to me and said he'd been sick, and he was sending it, and he was going to send it through the Postal Service. And I said, oh, please, send it through UPS or the others. And nope, the Postal Service is the closest one, and I had to pay shipping on it. So I get a call from the post office about 2 weeks later, and they said, we don't know what we got here, but we can't fit this in your mailbox. He mailed through the post office that rear bumper. I then had it re-chromed. So altogether, that rear bumper was about $800.
Yeah, I believe
after purchasing and paying shipping through the post office.
Well, and then the re-chrome, yeah.
And the re-chrome, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I priced a re-chrome for a 66 LeSabre, and it was $900.
Wow. Yeah, it's very expensive. I tried to find NOS parts for the taillights, the handles, things like that, just because some of the reproductions aren't available for this. And so I was able to find gaskets from 1969, which aren't necessarily the best because they're a little hard.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anything else. Now they are starting to reproduce some of the stuff for the station wagon. In fact, one company makes a rear tailgate gasket for it. And so apparently there's some want, or they wouldn't be doing it.
I don't know how many are left, but the people that have them want to keep them going.
Yes,
so,
yes.
I mean,
I've never seen another one. When I got this car, it did have a roof rack, but it wasn't on it. And being the young guy that I was, I didn't think I'd ever use it, and I discarded that.
Yeah.
And
now you kind of wish
I
you had
regret
it back.
that. Yeah, roof rack would have been pretty cool on it. It doesn't have the third row seat. Instead, underneath it has a trap door,
Yeah.
and it's storage.
Okay.
And so it's quite large.
Well, let's pop it open and kind of you can kind of see what we were talking about here.
All right. So
Makes
the back
for good
door
B-roll.
actually opens two directions.
Okay.
It opens like this.
Uh-huh.
It also lays down like a tailgate on a pickup.
Nice.
Okay. And then the original color is still under my carpet. That's
Yep.
the original. Okay. I
That's
didn't.
Kind of a nice baby bluish.
Yeah, faded out, crusty
Yeah.
blue. And so that is a complete compartment underneath there. And I chose to leave it because people always want to know, what color was your car? Well, here you go. There's
Yep.
what it was. It was ugly. Okay, it was ugly. That's what I call it.
And those are the pictures you loaned me to scan, right?
Yes, yes. That's the color.
That's the original color.
Yes,
Yeah. It isn't the prettiest blue, but I have definitely seen worse cars factory painted. That's for sure.
Yes.
With those colors. But without the rack and everything, I mean, this is and you said this is kind of the working man's
yeah, this
edition.
was
I'm
very
not
plain.
wise on.
Yeah, the Torino would have
wagons.
been a step up on,
Yeah, oh,
on the from the Fairlane. The
Yeah.
Fairlane was like the base model.
But
And
because
so-
of that, you don't have a lot of trim. I mean,
No.
it looks like it's been shaved. Everything's been shaved off.
Yes, it looks like
very clean.
And I had this is the second tailgate I've had on it. The first one I used this as a pickup. So this was my pickup with a permanent topper, and I hauled so much lumber in it that I actually caved the tailgate in. So I had to go to a junkyard over in Ames called Arts, and it was open at that time, and we got a tailgate off of a car that was three high stacked.
Yeah.
We got in a loader bucket, and we cut that tailgate off, and I still had to fix the rust on it.
Yeah.
So we used this. It hauls plywood. It did.
Yeah.
It did. It doesn't anymore.
Yeah. It was it was your working man.
It was my work. Yes, I had
Yeah.
a trailer hitch on it. I used to pull a small trailer,
Yeah.
and then I got a pickup. So
Yeah. You retired. You retired it to a life of luxury there.
yes, yes.
Nice. Nice.
Okay. So originally, when the car was blue, I had a license plate that said War Wagon, and I ran it that way for 20 years. And when I repainted the car, though, and made it nice, it just didn't quite fit it. So I decided to have something to go with the gold tone. I chose fool's gold because, as a Christian, the Bible tells us that we're to put our money, store our treasures in heaven. And instead, I put some of my money into this car. So I kind of joke about that. And it goes with the car, fool's gold.
As usual, I slapped the GoPros on the car and we took it for a ride. We cruised the old Lincoln Highway and passed by some historical landmarks along the way. There's not a whole lot to report on here as far as the wagon goes. It just drives and rides very smoothly. It's amazing that the transmission in this thing still works this well with over 200,000 miles on it. Mostly Kirk and I talked about teaching and just how rewarding it is to see your students learn and grow. I'm so glad that after nearly a year of trying to schedule this wagon, we finally got it done. Kirk has a few other rides and we're going to eventually get to those as well. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Average Joe Hot Rod Show. If you enjoyed this video, I sure would appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel. Check out the rest of my episodes, and maybe share them with your friends. If you are interested in going above and beyond and supporting this channel, you can find multiple ways to do so down below in the description. We have a PayPal, Patreon, and even an eBay store where you can purchase merchandise. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, remember, kick butt, take names, but most importantly, kill with kindness.